Okay.
And you look great, man.
Well, thank you. Well, you know, it's easy when you're hungry all the time.
Very good. I was thinking the best way to get into this, I live in the UAE, so we have Dubai as my neighbor to Abu Dhabi. We have the iconic Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world today. I was thinking of the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, or the Empire State Building in New York City. You are an icon, man, and you're trying to do something outside your field of track and field to make a difference in the world. What I thought was fascinating when I read into the background of your work to date is that you were particularly touched when you went to India and you were struck, and it happened to me when I was in Delhi and Mumbai at the same time. You come out of a five-star hotel, you hit the street, and poverty hits you right in the face. This had a lasting impact, and it actually redefined your mission statement for the future.
Well, that's interesting because we were going into this beautiful, wonderful hotel, and we were just walking through the homeless people, basically. And so my thought was, how many homeless people are here? And they talked about millions of homeless in the country, and I said, that's the size of the United States. But the thing that struck me the most is I said, how can you just do this? You just step over people and walk in. And the gentleman said, well, we just get used to it. And so I was like, how can you get used to that? How can you get used to the difficulties of others that are right around you? So between that and then also being raised by the way my parents raised us, they started out in the 1950s involved in the civil rights movement. And so my mother was a feminist in the 1960s. And so that's something that I watched. And growing up and seeing my mother starting a track program, which is why I got into athletics, because girls didn't have the opportunity, or seeing my father being the guy that everyone knew Mr. Lewis because he was a tough guy. I thought my life was normal, not going to the beach in New Jersey, what they call the shore, and spending all these days watching my parents coach kids. They were teachers, and then being able to travel at such a young age and seeing these things at 18, 19, 20 years old. Knowing that my mother, believe it or not, back in the 1950s, flew on a plane, first time ever. In 1951, she flew down to Argentina to compete, and she met Eva and Juan Perón. And after that trip, she shook her hand, and she came back and said, oh, she was really nice. I'm like, mother, I mean, that's Evita. But what she said is that my children will travel out of the country as teenagers in high school to see the world. Every single one of them, that's something they must do. And those experiences are what define who I am now.
You're an ambassador for the Food and Agriculture Organization, part of the United Nations, in fact based in Rome where I used to live. Do you think you made the headway that you wanted to with regards to nutrition, regards to tackling poverty, trying to eliminate it, and then linking that with the foundation that you have today at your name?
Well, we haven't, because people are still hungry. And you know what's interesting, living in the United States, almost the first thing everyone says, why do you go around the world when we have all these troubles here? Well, they're exactly right. The troubles are everywhere. But by taking our American story and going global, we can realize that the United States actually wastes enough food to feed the rest of the world every single day. So I felt that it wasn't just about hunger, but it was about how you think of other people. Especially now in the social media era, where everyone has their own People magazine, and that's their Facebook page. And in a lot of ways, you see people looking inside and not using this amazing medium we have as a cell phone for information. The entire world's history is in their hand, and yet they know less than kids did that used to just have books. And so I think that that exposure and that idea has given me a thought to go to every single person and try to get to them about finding ways to get outside of themselves. Me as a coach, I deal with kids 18 to 22 years old, and that's still formative years.
Sure.
But I'm trying to teach them how to be bigger than themselves. And then it may be in sports, it may be thinking about the way they treat themselves, the way they look at others, and how they act. Because it's a huge period in their lives when they gossip. It's gossip about something that's meaningful sometimes.
Wow. It's 1 out of 7 still today, human beings is undernourished, malnourished. What needs to take place in a rallying call around the world? We talked about the wastage. Sometimes in Africa we have portions 30% of the agriculture production never makes it to the market. This is one area where we've done a very poor job in society.
Well, the thing about it is that one thing we need to think about is how we distribute food, because it's really about, agriculture has become so much about making money and really should be about feeding people. We need to teach in places like the United States or other areas how to be self-sustainable. That's something. I visited Haiti a few years ago, and they've just deforested the entire country, basically. And so we have to educate people at a young age to know the long-term ramifications of the things they do. Education is the biggest part of all of this. And you have to understand, yeah, you may eat something now, but it's going to cost you later. And we also have to link security with food, because if we're running out of water, that's going to be not only an economic issue, but it's going to be a military issue ultimately.
It's going to be a trigger for war.
Yeah, and see, so we have to bring all these things together, not just think, oh, it's all separate. No, it's combined, because food, water, fresh water, and hunger are all really intertwined.
Are you still a vegan?
I'm not 100% vegan, but I do eat vegan a lot of times. I always make this joke back in the early '80s when everyone started going to Vegas and the athletes thought it was sexy. Well, I don't like to gamble, so they went to Vegas. I hired a cook. So I have someone who cooks at home. So at home, I'm mostly a vegan. Yes.
Huh. And what was the statement you were trying to make? Is it part environmental, part health reasons? What was the inspiration? What's the message you were trying to send then? And then the contribution that led to the FAO, the FAO.
Well, when I first started, is that I started in my late 20s because I realized my diet had to change as I got older as an athlete, and that evolved. Because once I started in the vegan, became a vegan, and looked at my diet, then I started reading information about other people, and then you get into this community of vegans, and then that community starts communicating, and then you get more information. Then I became more interested, and then all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, we're wasting food. We have what we do with cattle and methane gas and all these things. So it just evolved out of me wanting to be a better athlete.
That's extraordinary. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the attributes of being an athlete and trying to make a difference in the world today in the NGO. The focus, you're one of 10 Olympic medals, 9 gold medals,
right.
Am I correct? 1996 was your last participation in the Olympics. Says something about
I believe it's been 20 years.
Yeah. It's been 20 years already.
I know.
That seems like it went by very, very fast. But the focus of an athlete and the ability to make a change in the world today. We saw Sarah, who was blind.
Right.
She's so engaging. I was with her in the green room. I didn't realize she was blind. She's so engaging with her presence. Yes. Can you transfer from the athletic world, the focus of what you've been able to accomplish, and say, I got to make a difference in my second life, if you will?
Well, the biggest thing is, and I think I learned from my parents, and not anything they ever told me, it's just watching them as your relevance happens after sports. Because there's no question that I had a genetic predisposition to run fast. I was fortunate that I was in an environment that could make it better and to foster it. But I watched them do nothing but give their lives to the kids in the community. And so when I grew up, I realized not only can you make a difference, but for me as a global person, someone that went around the world, I looked in the stands as an athlete and saw the impact just running those races made. And I would take victory laps and I'd see people just waving a towel and girls just crying, and I'd take the towel and maybe wipe it and throw it back, and they'd just be crying. And I said, if I can make that impact just running down the track, why can't I use that for something that's bigger than myself?